Hi there, I'm David.
And I'm Con. We're back again for another video. This time, Dave, what are we going to talk about? You've got a very interesting project you've been working on.
We're going to talk about LED lights. Well, not so much LED lights, but some accessories that I've come up with. There's been lots of reviews about LED lights, and they're worthy reviews as well. I was probably a bit of a late starter into LEDs. I held off for the first couple of generations because of the disasters with green.
Yeah, well, a lot of the early LEDs had a green spike in them.
Yeah.
Something you could correct with a quarter minus green, but still, who wants to do that?
Correct. And we're not always in control of the post-production process.
That's
If
right.
we work for a TV station, we just hand the files over, and we can't make any assumptions
That they're going to correct the footage, or
that they've got time to correct the footage.
that's right. Or they'll be aware that it needs correcting.
Yes, yes. So look, I got into the game when the Aladdins came out. I felt they were worthy to.
So the quality of the light output was good enough for
and
you
the
to
CRI and the
Yep.
the bi-color advantages, etc. So I got into this review we're doing, or this conversation we're having now, is probably 2 years after. So it's almost like a retrospective Aladdin review. Well, that's not exclusively about Aladdin lights as such. But anyhow, so when I got these lights, look great. That solved some problems. I was able to really reduce the weight of my lighting kit.
Oh yeah, talk to us about your lighting kit. What was in your old lighting kit, and how much did it weigh?
Well, the old lighting kit that I ran for years, I had 4 Didos, the classic Didos. I had 4 small stands. I had a Light Reefer light.
That was 500 watt. I remember
That's
those.
right.
Soft
Yep.
box.
Yeah, quite nice. And I had a 650 with a Chimera and egg crate, and that weighed in at 32 kilograms.
Which is not light.
No, and the trolley had the case had wheels on it, so it was fine. I was able to sort of get around.
Yep.
When these things came out, it just changed. I'm sure it has for a lot of people. It just changed the way you do business, and especially if you travel.
So what was the motivation for you to reduce the weight in your lighting kit?
Well, it just filters through the whole car. The
Because
heavy.
you're carrying that kit with you all the time. It's petrol.
That's right, and we have to, and it's something that people don't actually talk about is the weight in the car, and you fill it up with fuel, you put passengers in the car, and you're actually creeping up to its maximum
load capacity.
So look, 10 kilograms here, 12 kilograms doesn't sound like much, but it helps you reduce things like lead shop bags, so you can go to smaller stands.
That's right.
It affects the trolley load from the car park to the location.
Which someone still has to push, even though it's on a trolley.
I know.
So how much did you get it down to, weight-wise?
12 kilograms.
Wow, from 32 to 12.
Yeah, and I paired the Didos off into another. I changed my system a little bit.
Right.
I put the Didos into a separate kit.
So if you don't need them, you don't take them?
Correct. And with the, Aladdin, I sound like a spokesperson for Aladdin, I'm not, but I also have a couple of their smaller lights. So they substituted probably 2 Dido lights in themselves, for just effects lights.
Yep.
And they have internal power, so they're quite useful. But anyhow, as good as the light is, and I'm not just singling out the Aladdin. There's a few.
Got some other ones here. This is my Cineroid.
And I've got the Westcott. Westcott here.
Yep.
As well. But they're basically just floodlights in this form, and they're promoted as. And I'm not having a go at them at all, but they're promoted as, being flexible. They're promoted as being weatherproof. Now that's not a bad thing, especially weatherproof, but it doesn't really affect. It doesn't make a big difference to my day, which is
your day-to-day use of the lights,
interviews, green screen shoots, etc. So I came home and go, well, look, it's just a floodlight. The same rule is as good as the technology is. The rules haven't really changed. You have to manage the light.
Control the
light, and the classic redhead, or it's barn doors, and we put some scrim over to soften it down. So what could I do? And also with the bracket that they supply, I think these are called X mounts or something. You have to install this every time.
Which it takes time, doesn't it? That's what the thing that frustrates me a little bit, that I have to spend that extra bit of time setting this up on the shoot when you're under the pump anyway.
Yeah, and I actually, I wasn't actually sure how it went. Did it go under the stainless steel lugs? Did it go under there? And There's still some doubt in my mind how it actually worked, but that didn't last long with me, and I still to this day I don't know what those things do. So I was straight off to the hardware store, and then to the fabric suppliers, and to the art supply shop to get the parts that I needed. I thought I was going to need to sort of solve some of my problems, which was basically about controlling the light, and also, you know, if you can't really leave that set up.
No, it's
like
very fragile like that.
Yeah.
Where do you put it? In a case, in a bag?
If you put two of these face to face, then you risk the LEDs rubbing up against each other, or that metal component. So I wasn't big on this X clamp. So I go, what am I going to do? I have a couple of good collaborators, family and friends.
Yep.
One who sews, one who welds.
Very lucky.
One's very good with technical things, and we sort of said, well, look, why don't we make a frame, a rigid frame for these lights?
Yep.
So we came up with this design, which I've patented. And what it means is, that's it there. I know it's not totally assembled at the moment. I know it just looks like an old TV antenna, but I'll just put it here and show you what I do.
So already I can see how quick that was to mount on the lighting stand.
Yes.
Continue.
So that's okay. So we just drop the flexible LED panel in.
Okay, now we've got a picture of you dropping the frame in. Now there's a gutter, obviously, that the frame slides into.
I have set up a new website, a new business for these products.
Yeah.
So it's called Light Wrangler.
Oh, it's a great name. I like the name.
Yeah, thank you. And so a lot of this stuff, if you miss any of the detail here, or we miss any of the detail, I've got a lot of the information.
This is your website here, isn't it?
And it's
Light Wrangler.
Like most people's websites, they're a bit of a work in progress, but the detail is there. There's also an online store, which we'll come to later. So I've dropped the, this is for the Aladdin. So I've dropped the flexible panel in to the frame.
Now, as we can see in the photo, that top crossbar or bracing bar just locks it into place.
Locks it in.
There's a couple of screws there. Now, how often do you need to screw this thing in and out? I mean, I'd hate to be doing that all the time.
Look, I can't speak for everyone else, but I really, apart from these demonstrations, I don't really take the...
So you more or less, once you've put it in, that's it?
Pretty much.
Okay.
And there will be the time, because that was brought up, you know, well, it's not flexible anymore from the outlet where I bought these. And I said, well, look, I don't really use them in the flexible form. And also, I think if you do flex them all the time, it will eventually...
Yeah, like something might break. Or,
might eventually break. So there will be a time where I have to, you know, put it, you know, the classic scenario of adhering it into a lift.
Oh, yeah.
On the buttons, you know, so you can get those shots. That will happen one day.
Or on a car roof. Yeah.
And I have used it through a sunroof, lighting a car. But the majority of the times I keep it in the frame.
Now, having it in the frame, how do you store it?
Well,
how do you set it up? Show us how quickly.
Well, look, that's on a stand here. But look, I basically just drop it into the. And that's another thing that I've probably done with this. Change of technology. I've probably gone from hard cases to the soft bags, you know, just for
to reduce the weight.
And it's just softer in the car, and it just drops in. So I have two of these.
Yep.
And I just have a separator in the Orca bag. I think I've got an Orca, and so at the beginning of the job, I just pull it out.
Yeah. Show us how quickly. Bang! Job done.
That's
Connect
done.
it up.
That's done.
And turn on the light.
Which I can do, because we're going to move up to the next part of this demo. I will actually just plug that in. So that's one component, is the frame, and you can see it's profile's quite slim.
So one benefit you've just shown us now is that it improves its rigidity. It's not as fragile as with the other configuration, and it's quick to use.
It's quick to use.
And
also, and we discussed in another video the scissor clamp. You know, where you can sort of hang it. You know, if that basically with the X bracket, which has the ball mount there, you wouldn't actually be able to
Tilt it.
Tilt it.
Yeah, so that's another benefit. That's
It
a
is.
big benefit.
It is a big
actually.
benefit, or the only angle you would get that would probably be the maximum
Yeah, it wouldn't be much
angle
of an
would
angle.
you get. It's not much of an angle.
Wow, that's a big benefit.
I think
actually.
it is. I think it is.
Yeah. Whereas this one, you got full 90-degree range of tilt.
And look, I love this light so much. There's a photo. Well, there's the light hanging. Once again, that Manfrotto stand there is really designed for audio.
Yeah, and for heavier lights.
Heavier
maybe.
lights.
Yeah.
I was told, one Dito is probably all the weight you would want to
Really, on the end of that,
put it that
fully
way.
extended.
You have to counterbalance it.
That's right.
So, but that's a good little angle there. Backlights, over the top lights, keep the stand out of the shot.
Now, as well as those benefits, there's another benefit to your system.
There is, and I'll just check I've got the right angle there, because I did mention they were basically floodlights. Which
Actually, shall we turn it on and just have a
we'll
look?
just turn it on. Yeah, actually, just for this part of the demonstration, I might actually just turn it on. If I can find it, there it is. So, pointing into, well, it's just spilling onto me there. This is part of the demonstration, and pointing into the.
It's
the
even
XD
hitting
camera.
me, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So, okay, so I came up with this. Well, it's a snoot. Hang
All
on.
right.
And
So
I'll
how
just
does
see-
how does that configure?
Well, I'll show you in a sec, but it's just comparable. You're probably familiar, with the old way of doing things, which was the Shimera, the speed ring.
Yep.
And
they used to go on redheads,
Yeah.
650s, 300s,
650s.
2Ks.
and the soft box, the Shimera soft box.
Now, show them how deep that thing is, because if you were in a small room or office space, you're reluctant to set that thing up
I just
because
wouldn't.
it was very.
Yeah.
It becomes a big footprint.
It was
because it needed to be deep to get it far away enough from the light to fill the whole frame.
And you generally had to have one of the flaps, the top flap open.
Oh, for heat.
For heat.
That's another benefit of these LED lights. There's no heat, so you don't have to worry about positioning it under a fire sensor.
The classic hotel room interview, rock and roll interview, was okay. The sprinklers there, I better not set up there.
Yeah,
Let's turn the air conditioning on flat out while we're setting up.
that's right.
So when the talent comes in, there was all this timing. You'd have to turn it off a few minutes before because there could be creaking with the room.
The lights even cooling down.
All those things. So there was a sequence, and obviously, a lot of people have already talked about these items in with this range of the revolution, the LED revolution, which it
has been.
Yeah, but going back to the classic hotel room interview.
Yep.
So I was just saying before, I was complaining before. Look, these lights were just
they spill everywhere.
they spill everywhere, and so I came up with this snoot. Basically, this was from the art supply shop and the fabric supplier.
Yep.
And my sister, one of my sisters sews. Actually, they both sew.
Oh, okay.
So it was over the Christmas break, I think last year.
Yep.
Year before, we worked on this together.
Fantastic.
So
it's a family affair.
it is. So think about a. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's basically like a box kite.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So we came up with this, the snoot, and the back of the LED panel has Velcro. So as I've found out working with people who work in the rag trade, they refer to what we would call Velcro, hook and loop. I'm not sure why, but I've learned to use both. But on the back of the flexible panel is Velcro. So I've had these tabs sewn in.
Yep.
And
So they just
so we'll just put it on now.
attach to the Velcro that's
At the
behind
back,
the light. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's some photos on the website. You can just see, I think already, the effect that's having on even just that wide shot that we've got
Yeah, no, that's great.
there. So so you can see it's off, the spills off my face, the spills
right.
off you, and you can see how it just.
So you've controlled the light spill out of this sauce, but it's still a hard sauce. How do I make that a soft sauce?
Well, with the the diffuser that's supplied. In fact, you actually have to. It's another thing that I explain on the website. A characteristic of the LEDs. People who've studied physics will probably explain it better than me. So when the snoot goes on, it actually forms this square sort of beaded pattern. So you do have to use the diffuser,
right, to avoid these multi-shadows effect because of each LED is creating a.
I guess that's what it is.
Yeah,
I guess that's what it is.
Some shadows. So once you put the diffusion on, you get that effect.
Then it's back to a soft light.
Back to a soft light.
Yeah.
So that's very desirable
So
to do.
I've taken this shot. This is about 2 meters away from a. That's it again. So that photo's taken from about 2 meters away from the wall, just to show the before and after.
Yep.
But what I've done with, actually not this particular one, once again, because you befriend the dressmakers and the seamstresses, I just get them to sew some Velcro onto. This is the Aladdin diffuser.
Yep.
I've made provision within the snoot. I've had a Velcro tab sewn in.
Yep.
So you basically put the diffuser in. It just adheres.
Is that one
inside.
that goes into that snoot?
That's the one, except I haven't actually modified this one with the Velcro. So that's kind of how it works. So I've basically got the controlled. Just to remind everyone, I'll take it off. I'll just show you what it does.
And
so I'll take this off. If we just sort of watch how that affects everything, the lens flare.
Now we've got lens flare on my camera.
Background.
So it's hitting my camera and creating lens flare. So
it is pretty good.
You have been able to control the light spill as well as make it a quick and easy light to use. You have managed to control it, tame the soft light, which is a hard thing to do.
Yeah. And once again, I'll just I know we spoke about it earlier, but just the advantages of that.
Actually having the pivot point on the end there rather than in the middle.
In the middle.
Yeah.
So just for modelling of.
So if you were doing tabletop stuff, that's pretty good.
So I'll take that away, I think. Oh, and also, just to finish off the Aladdin, we're actually lighting this piece with a few lights.
Yeah. So we're actually being keyed by
the
your
Aladdin,
lights.
by the
with not your lights, your snoots.
The snoots.
Yeah.
So
your Light Wranglers.
My Light Wranglers. So they are hanging up in the roof, upside down.
Oh yes.
Off super clamps.
Yep.
On the Manfrotto ball heads.
Yep.
But we're in a fairly tight space here.
Yes.
And we've got a plasma TV. We've got our own monitor. We've got lens flare to deal with. This is the control, the Aladdin control for your key light.
Yep.
So I'm going to turn it off, and we can just see if we'll cut to the wide shot.
There you go.
It doesn't actually affect a lot.
No.
And if we look at your main camera shot and just look at the background, those old cameras that are lit with an effects light.
So in effect, if you didn't have that snoot as my key light, that light would be spilling onto the background and washing it out.
It'd be washing, your key light would be hitting.
Oh, not to mention your kick, yeah.
And this TV is only arm's length from here, so that would
get reflections from that camera.
We wouldn't be seeing the clear image on the TV. So I'm part salesman, part cameraman, but these naturally evolved. As good as the lights are, they did, in my opinion, just require just some additional tweaking.
Yeah.
In the form of.
So you saw a problem and you solved it. Yeah, and the problem was, having the light readily available to quickly use and to control the spill from the soft source.
And I think we've covered it in a previous previous video on clamps. And on my trolley, if I'm say doing a corporate video, I will just have these super clamps screwed, clamped onto my trolley, and I just have rows of LED lights.
Oh, wow.
And run them off V-Lock batteries. So in the corporate environment, we're not running power cables.
Which is important, like if you're shooting in the supermarket, as we tend to now for the major retailers, they don't want us to run cables. You can't run cables.
Can't run cables. And if you're in a corporate environment, the whole floor, the whole level is possibly just under one, lighting circuit. So, we might be getting some B-roll of someone, working at a computer, but we can't turn the whole floor off, so we have to work with what's there. And once again, that's where these bi-colour LEDs are fantastic, because it's often a mix of daylight, fluorescence, or the low energy lights or whatever. So these are good, but they still just require a little bit of control. And if you think back to barn doors, soft boxes, egg crates, chimeras, yeah. So it's just a variation on that theme.
So it really gives a lot more versatility to your flexible lights. So you can have them flexible when you want them, but for most bread and butter work that we do, which is probably talking heads or shooting cutaways, overlay, you want it readily available to draw out, set up, and control from the background. Now, I've got a photo up here. What's that showing us?
So this is the diffuser
Yep.
that comes with the Aladdin, and this just shows where I have had the dressmaker just sew the, and all this information
Is on your
is
website?
on the website.
Yep.
So they basically just sew the Velcro to that, and like I mentioned, I've made provision for it to adhere inside the snoot. So there's a Velcro strip in there.
Right, and that's what that's showing us.
And also, I just thinking ahead, I've also there's also it's hard to see, but there's actually Velcro strip
On
at
the
the end of the
outside?
snoot. So look, if people want to custom
on the front end.
on
of
the front
snoot.
end,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
if you wanted to customize further, and you wanted to, letterbox that, or put more diffuser
put
on,
a flag
or
up the
put
top.
a gel, or
gel. Yeah.
something, So that's pretty much nutted out. I've made, because they're lightweight, the internals are, I think it's core flute. But I've made it with this Velcro, so it's all pretty tight. Once it's on, it's quite tight. But look, it is lightweight, and if you do rest a pelican case on there, it could get damaged. But the fabric should be okay. It might just be a case of replacing the core flute in inserts,
which is good. And I was going to say, are these snoots or Light Wranglers only for flexible lights, or can you use them on traditional 1x1s like this Light Panels Astra?
Well, that was interesting. That light panels is actually mine. I have quite a few lights, as you've worked out.
As we all do.
As we all do. And I realised that the same thing applies, because I used these light panels in a green screen shoot that I was doing.
Yep.
And I had the same problem, especially it was a big green screen. It was a big job, head to toe. And I needed to, you need to keep the light off the green screen, the spill off the green screen and on the talent. And so what I did was I just put you can see it in the video there, in the picture, that I just put the adhesive Velcro on the back of the light panel. And this is the Aladdin one.
Yep.
The Aladdin snoot, and it actually just fortuitously just slips onto the light panel. So you get two bites of the cherry.
Yep.
And also
one snoot.
And also, in the sort of nearly 2 years that I've been using them, the gaffers, if you're lucky enough to work on a big set, the gaffers have the floppies, the negative fill, and I've found that this doesn't hurt to have this. It's like a cutter, or it's big enough to work as a cutter. And even I had one situation where it was an auto cue, a lectern auto cue job, and of course the monitors were on the floor looking up, and there was a lot of light spill, and I just go, I know what I can use, so I just put that on the outside of the monitor, and that just made it easier for the person reading
Could you use it for a field monitor?
Probably could.
Probably could.
Probably
There's many
could.
uses. Now, do you make? Is it one size fits all, or do you have a snoot for each light?
I've got. I tend to just work in the 1x1 area. So, and as we know, there's lots of brands.
Yeah. Now, for example, do you have a particular snoot for this Cineroid?
I do.
Yep.
I do. So it's pretty much. I'll just get it. I'll just get it out. I'll get rid of that one. Happened to prepare this one earlier.
Oh, there you go.
So it's a shrunken down Aladdin. The Aladdin was the first, and then Cineroid came. Now, I should just point out, I actually bought all of these lights to benchmark them, and because they're all just sort of slightly different.
Yep.
And this one, of course, is 25. It's not quite 1x1. This one's 25 centimeters by 25 centimeters.
Yep.
So another advantage of this one, I've on the Aladdin, because the Cineroid has the same cross bracket. To me, it's the same.
Same problem.
Annoying problem. Yeah. I've pulled apart the supplied base and just I know the aisle at the local hardware store with all the nuts and bolts and washers on there. That's my most frequented aisle, and I've just managed to fasten that to my Light Wrangler frame.
Yep. Now that's so small. Could you use it on top of a camera?
I did.
Yeah, it's not that particular light, is it?
No, that's the Aladdin. Now I set that photo up.
Yeah.
But it is based on something that actually happened. I was doing.
Tell us about it.
Well, I was doing. I'm pretty sure it was live at one of the stadiums. There was a big. I think it was a rugby match.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-shot interview. And the stadium lights were on, and you could sort of say, why did you bother using fill light, because there was enough stadium light, which is true, but there's a lot of shadows and things.
The lights are in the most optimum angles.
No.
Yes. Yeah.
So I experimented, and I looked like an idiot walking through the underground stadium with it. I had it folded down.
Yeah, because you can tilt it. Now, you'd hate for it to be a windy day, though.
I would. It was. It wasn't windy, but it is waterproof. It is weatherproof.
Well, that's true. You wouldn't worry if it did start. You'd worry about the camera first before you worried about the light. Yeah.
So as a camera guy, stadium lighting and all the different venues here in Melbourne, it was Amy Park, and of course they all the lighting. The stadium lighting could just be slightly different colour temperatures.
Yep.
So what I did was just turn it off, white balanced under the stadium lights, and I think it said it was 4.3 or something. And then, of course, these brilliant lights, you just go to the control unit and just turn it on and dial in 4.3.
How are you powering this light, by the way?
Off a V-Lock battery.
Separate to the camera?
Separate to the camera.
So you're not running it off the D-tap off the battery? Okay.
No.
Is that because it draws too much to do that?
I'd say yes. I wouldn't. I'd keep it separate. Yeah. And you have the utility bag anyhow with spare batteries.
Which most of us are used to.
So I just had it in there. But it was an interesting experiment, and it worked really well. And because the shot was a 2-shot, so I actually needed something stronger than the traditional.
The little lights we use, LED lights we use on top of the camera. And this obviously for a 2-shot gives enough spread as well as enough.
It just gets rid of those shadows.
Yeah, and the deep eye sockets, because the lights are way up on the towers up there. Yeah.
And so what can I say? So with the Cineroid, just going back to the Cineroid, another thing I've done is I've just used the wire ties and just fastened the controller to the back of the frame, because with this Cineroid, once again, nice light, but there's a power supply and there's a controller and there's plugs, and I just find that if I was lighting someone, I'm looking at the subject and I can just look there, turn it on, and make the adjustments.
We normally expect to have the controls, like the Astra.
Yeah, and that's just gone off. And if the controller is hanging down, the power supply, you're concentrating, and it's always in a rush. Setting up for interviews, and I just know it's there.
Yeah.
And it's just So that's not a bad use of those components. Also with the Cineroid, this is the supplied diffuser. Yep. And you have one of these lights.
Yes, I do.
As well. Oh, and also another thing, I'm just going to jump ahead there. If you look at the orientation of the Cineroid, of its branding, serial number, whatever, the power cable
Hangs the wrong way.
hangs the wrong way. So what I've done, once again, with mine, I've actually just inserted it upside down so that the power cable
Falls naturally
naturally.
and not putting strain on the cable. Yeah.
So the frame is pretty much just the baby version of the Aladdin. This is the supplied diffuser. The Cineroid has the Velcro on the back again. So with the mini Aladdin frame,
So that's very handy. So you've got the choice. If you don't need to control the light spill, you can just use that as a light
yeah.
as is. Oh, I like that.
So okay, but we've still got
Spill?
Still got spill.
Yep.
So I'll just turn that off, just so as not to annoy everyone. Baby light, baby frame, and I've also made a baby snoot.
Okay. So what is the technique on this for getting it on?
I put the
So,
diffuser on.
so you have to wrap it around the frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than placing it.
Yes.
Yep.
So I'm not sure if I've got it exactly right, but it's pretty close. And then same thing, the Velcro tabs.
So do you use the diffusion like that? You put the
That's pretty much what I do.
Yep. So you don't have to have a separate diffusion that
No,
you
I
stick
just use
on.
the supplied one. So
The
this
supplied one.
this
Yep.
is one that you can just get up and
Yep.
and
That's great.
and start running. So
One less thing to worry about or have to
yeah.
organise. Yeah.
So similarly, yeah, the Velcro tabs all line up, and I'll turn this guy on.
There you go. You got your light control
Light control.
and your soft source.
Just bring it up a little bit, and then we've got that control.
That's wonderful. I really like what you've done there, David.
Thanks.
Now you've got a new product out. You've had some feedback from gaffers who are using your products. What's this new development
Okay,
that
so
they've asked for, basically?
Okay, this just before we jump onto that one.
Yep.
And once again, this has probably come from the lights that are popular in the Sydney and Melbourne markets, I guess. So it's the main players are really Aladdin, Cineroid,
And
the
Westcott?
Westcott, and I don't know if we've mentioned the Westcott.
We
but
haven't as yet.
we
Do
haven't
you want to
mentioned the
quickly just
Westcott.
mention the Westcott?
Look, it's pretty much the same as the Aladdin. In its dimensions, the frame is just slightly different, but it's the same principle.
So does that mean that you have a specific frame for the Westcott, a specific frame for the Aladdin?
But
and
the snoots are the same.
The snoots are the same,
Yep.
and obviously a frame for the
Cineroid.
Cineroid because it is a smaller
Yep.
light as well.
Yep.
Yep.
And all the information's on the website. And it's a work in progress, and there's new lights coming out all the time.
Yep.
With the people have asked me, can you make snoots and frames for the bigger ones, the 2x1s?
Oh yeah.
I'm just holding off at the moment because I think that if people have the need for bigger light, it's probably to light bigger areas.
Yeah. So they don't need to
I don't think
control the light.
So look,
Yeah.
I'll just wait off on that one. But look,
Sure.
I've got the people lined up. I've got the engineer. I've got the aluminium welding specialist. So everyone's there. I can make another one. I'll just wait and see what
Yep.
the demand is. But it's really for our level. You know, the interview, the operating out of a small van,
Yeah, the one
the
man
TV
band.
work, the corporate
Yep.
video. So
Yep.
it's really just sort of the 1x1s at the moment. So I've got the Westcott. So we've got the Aladdin, Cineroid, and the Westcott. And if I can just do a bit of a plug on the Westcott,
Yep. Go ahead.
their kit is quite basic. You're pretty much just buying the flexible panel and the power supply. Their X bracket is
So it doesn't come with an X bracket.
no, it's an extra.
Oh, okay.
And
So if
as
you
is-
don't need it, and if you're intending to buy your frame, you can save yourself a bit of
You can
coin.
save some money and just buy my bracket. But that is fortuitous for me that the Westcott comes in a fairly basic form.
Yep.
But I have got the Aladdin snoot fits, and the frame is just slightly different to the Aladdin. It's just slightly thicker. But the fourth one
Yep.
is for another light that's quite popular.
Oh, really?
The Fomex.
Fomex. Okay.
And I think traditionally, looking at their website, I think they're traditionally studio photography flash
Okay.
softboxes and things. So they've branched out into LEDs. I have bought one of theirs, once
Yep.
again for bench marking and to make a frame. This is it. I've actually got the light itself is actually with our local retailer here, John Barry Sales in Melbourne.
Yeah.
It's just on the floor.
So if people want to test out your product, your Light Wrangler, they can actually go to John Barry and a few other places to actually test for themselves.
Lemac here in Melbourne,
Yeah.
Videocraft here in Melbourne. Yeah, this is the Fomex in this frame, which is different to the Aladdin and the Westcott and the Cineroid. But if anyone's familiar with the Fomex, it is a different design. It has it sort of like has collars for magnetic buttons of the diffuser to actually sit in there.
To attach themselves.
The frame has been designed so there's actually no stress on the light itself, and you can still use the supplied diffuser. It's still
So is that, you don't have any channels for it to slide into? Is that just magnetically sticking to the...
it sits in the bottom of the flexible panel, sits in there.
Yeah.
And then that's the lid again, that just sits in there and then
holds it in place. So there's no magnetic attachment.
No.
Right.
And then
So why'd you go with that design and not the U-shaped channel?
to keep the integrity of the light itself, because I was considering unscrewing those corners on the Fomex, and I thought, well, look, you may have issues with warranty, or people might want to just use them as they are, or they might want to sell them secondhand. I think just leave it as is. This one, because of that, it's just slightly heavier than the Aladdin.
Yep.
But it's a different system, and I've also made a different fastening system because the Fomex light doesn't have Velcro on the back.
Yep.
And you'll see on the website it's a slightly different system. But that's the frame for the Fomex. And I think there's another photo here. I utilise once again, I've got the X bracket situation that you've probably worked out I'm not a big fan of. But if we just go to, it's maybe the middle one.
This one?
Yeah, maybe just click on that one. Lying there is the X bracket, just folded up. With those components there, so a screwdriver, I'm not sure what size spanner that is, 10 mil or 12 mil or something, and an Allen key, some nuts and washers from the local hardware store. You actually undo the bracket, the X bracket, and you utilise that component of the bracket, supplied bracket. And if we just click to the next, okay, so that's the Fomex. That's part of the bracket,
right?
And then
so this is something the user
I've done, so
or whoever buys that version of the frame will have to
just pull your X bracket apart.
Yep.
And fasten that component, the locking component, to this frame, and it works pretty well. I must say.
Great.
So then you have those advantages of
the tiltability
from the bottom and more angle options, and then all those things of just storing it in soft bags or packing it up quickly.
Which is a great thing.
It is.
Great thing.
Where this one has varied, I've done the snoot's a little bit different.
Are we talking about your new design?
That's a new design. So I have just the standard snoot. This one was feedback from a customer, a gaffer, and he said it would be really good if it could be half this length. And I go, okay, so back to the dressmaker, and we said, look, what can we do here? So we've basically got a fold back snoot. So you can see that's the bottom panel. That's one, and they fold back and sit there. And you're just starting to see it. There is once again the supplied diffuser.
Yep.
I've put Velcro provision inside the snoot. It just happens to sit in there quite snugly. Another advantage of this Fomex design is when you put the diffuser up against the LED light, it actually doesn't do a lot.
No, because it's too close.
It's too close, and you can actually still see the individual LEDs. Just separating it that much, it just makes it a completely different soft light. So here you get 2 bites of the cherry. You can have nice controlled light, or you can just fold the...
So the benefits I see here is this reminds me very much of the old skirt we used to put around the China balls or the Chimera lanterns. So over a table, lighting a kitchen table, people around the table. And if you want to light that side of the wall, you just lift up the skirt in the same way. You can just lift up one side to light, spill bit of spill hit a wall on that side.
And I've got very conditioned to these very quickly.
Yeah.
But you know, I think back to the cutters, and you know, you go to the car, get a small C-stand and a cutter
To do the same job.
to do the same thing.
And sometimes you can't because it'll be in shot. Whereas this way, it's a lot quicker and easier.
So look, I'm pretty happy with that one. It's probably not the sexiest looking snoot, but like you're not looking at the snoot, you're looking at what it's actually lighting.
No, I think it's very innovative.
So I'm quite happy with that one. And one of the local gaffers has actually bought a couple of these already, so I'm happy that's gone out.
Yep.
So I think we're sort of getting through it.
Yeah, we've sort of shown everything we need to show. Shall we just roughly talk about your collaborators?
Chan.
Who is this gentleman here?
He's unnamed.
He's unnamed.
We can put a name in there.
Oh, okay.
So that's Chan. So he has a factory here in Melbourne.
Yep.
And I just got his name recommended from the aluminium supplier where I bought all this stuff.
Yep.
They said, go and have a chat to this guy. I said, who would be interested in making custom frames? And he was up for it.
Yep.
And I've learnt a lot from him. I didn't know that machine behind him is called a CNC router. I had no idea. It was finding him was a bit like winning the lottery because he has, you know, laser engraving. He has.
Oh, I'll find a shot of that.
He can do all sorts of things, and he's gone beyond the call of duty. The scrap, the recycle. Oh, that's right. And that's another service, and that's on the website as well. If you wanted to
custom engraving,
custom engraving.
So you can engrave your company name and contact details on there.
And I'm engraving them with serial numbers, just to keep a track of them all.
Yeah.
But there is at the top of the frame, I'm leaving empty, so that's an option for customers if they would actually like to get their company name or web address or mobile phone number engraved.
And Chan, is that his name?
Chan, yes.
Chan can offer that service as well.
He can.
So even if you're not interested in the Light Wrangler and you're interested in labelling your gear, like your clamps and all sorts of things.
Oh, look, I've done my Mapbox rails.
Oh, yeah.
All these things I've never talked about. I've always talked about engraving, never got around to it. But the laser engraver, and we can probably save that for another video, is quite amazing, and he has all these tools there. So
fantastic. Just to wrap up then, so if people want more information, they can go to your website, which is lightwrangler.com.au. Well, congratulations for solving a problem that we as cinematographers have faced for a long time. And how do we control soft light? We all like soft light and what it does to our subjects, but controlling it, especially in small environments, is very hard.
And when you don't have a gaffer,
that's right.
Cutters, C-stands, yeah. So
it's all more gear to lug around to carry in your car. And I really like what you said about reducing the weight of your lighting kit.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing. And things like I can go to smaller light stands and consider not taking the 12 kilogram shop bag. I can just have a small shop bag, or, you know, hanging them from ceilings, you know, so.
That's fantastic. So as far as price and how people can buy these things, can they buy direct from the website?
They can. I've set up an online store.
Yep.
Feel free to email me though through Light Wrangler. I've set up a Light Wrangler email address. Mirror Image, my original company, that's still going, of course. I'm just keeping it separate. The camera services, I just want to keep separate and not confuse customers. They're both me, but there is an online store. Feel free to email me or call me. But there is an online store, and I think that's necessary these days because
for international buyers who might be interested in buying one but don't have a local retailer like we do here in Melbourne, who are also stocking your Light Wranglers.
But also it keeps the cost down, you know. And I've done my best. I've done as much labour as I can, you know, just putting the foam in and keeping costs down. So there's no distributors outside Australia
not yet
at the moment.
Yep. So if people are interested in being a distributor overseas, please get in contact with David.
Absolutely.
Yep. I think it's a product worthy in everyone's lighting kit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll see you next time for our next video.